Good morning, students. Welcome to Swayam Learning Point. I hope you are doing fine. Okay. Today we are starting with the second chapter of history. Any wild guesses? Absolutely. It's Historiography, Indian tradition. Okay. The first chapter which we have studied was basically historiography, and this is historiography, Indian tradition. Let's begin. Indian historiography is divided into three parts: ancient, medieval and modern. So here we are completely talking about Indian historiography, which is divided into three halves, that is ancient, medieval and modern. Okay, ancient in the sense means, so Indian historiography is basically divided into three. One is ancient, medieval and modern. Ancient मतलब बहुत पुराना, medieval मतलब modern और ancient के बीच वाला, and the last is basically termed as modern. Now, the ancient period is consists of only oral traditions. Oral tradition means what? Something I don't have in written. Orally somebody said me something, I just passed it on. It's a mythological lore. It can be a song, it can be a story pertaining to god, goddesses, great deeds. ये हुआ था, you know, that person, he fought like a brave person, he encountered the tiger and all those. But no written proof here. Somebody said me, I heard, and it is a social transition. It is passed from society. My grandmother gave some tips to my mother gave me, and I'm passing on to my daughter, and so on it goes. This was basically the ancient period where we used to have only oral tradition, everything by mouth, nothing in black and white. Written sources, then we had written sources. Okay, inscriptions means कहीं तो भी लिखा हुआ है. Okay, कहाँ पे लिखते थे पहले? Natural rocks, stone pillars, coins. Natural rocks also we have seen something engraved on the rocks. Stone pillars, we have seen pillars, stone pillars where something is written on it. We have different coins at home also. If you see the coins, you have on one side you have the valuation, the denomination of the coin, and on the other side you have the Satyameva Jayate, okay, and or you have the symbols. Okay, this was a written source. Like every ruler he used to mint his own coins, which used to have a significance. एक slogan होता था उस particular king का. स्ट्रेस किस चीज पे देता था, प्रेशर किस चीज पे देता था. Early written sources are in the form, right? Quite early it was only in the form of inscriptions, and inscriptions was on rocks and pillars. We never had anything at that time, no? And in the first CE, that is common era, it was in the form of coins, metal images, copper plates. These were the things you can say on which they used to write. Okay, inscriptions लिखते थे. And not only that, पुराने ज़माने political events, various kings and the territorial extent. As I said, history is something related to the past. I was not present. You were not present during that particular time span. So what do you do? So you want to know about a particular king, what did he achieve in his life, how many battles he fought, how many wars he won, where did he make a blunder? You have to know. And that you can get it only with the help of written sources. So political events, various kings, the territorial extent, boundaries, how many territories he captured, how many regions, from where to where he extended his territory. I find it only in the form of written sources. Now, in written sources we also have biographies. Okay, the first one, biography, is basically Harsha Charitra. Harsha Charitra was written by Bhana Bhatt, and it is basically pertaining to King Harsha's biography. King Harsha's biography, okay, and it basically covered the social, economic, political and religious. Means, in short, during the rule of King Harsha, how was the society, the trade, the different rules and regulations formed by the king, the religion, what was the religious practice of the people, everything was written in this biography, and that biography is Harsha Charitra, written by Bhanabhatta, and it was pertaining to King Harsha. It covered all the aspect during his उस particular king के rule में each and every aspect was taken into consideration, the social, the economic, the political and the religious. Okay, let's move ahead. Now historiography in the medieval period. This is the second period. Remember the first slide, what was the first? Ancient, medieval at modern. So we are talking about the medieval period. Now this you will have to learn this particular table by heart. It can come for pick out the incorrect pair. Okay, now we'll begin with it. The first one is Kalhana. He wrote a book called as Raj Tarangini. Okay, here the details of Kashmir, the history of Kashmir is completely given. He has wrote complete history of Kashmir. Second was Ziauddin Barni. He wrote Tariq-e-Firuz Shahi. He started, उसका purpose क्या था कि we need to know, he studied the purpose of historiography. Take a break. Historiography का पर्पस क्या है कि मुझे एक आई वॉन्ट टू नो हिज स्टोरी इन अ ग्राफिकल स्टाइल यार, पूरी उसकी पूरी स्टोरी मुझे चाहिए इन द फॉर्म ऑफ एवरीथिंग, क्या किया क्या नहीं किया, उसकी कौन सी पॉलिसीज अच्छे थी, कौन सी पॉलिसीज गलत थे, उसकी ये डिसीजन सही थी, ये डिसीजन गलत था. I need to know that, guys, and that is what Ziauddin Barani he professed that. He stated the purpose of historiography. What is the purpose of historiography? The next was Babur, and the book was, is Turek-e-Babri. Okay, now Turek-e-Babri is basically the details of the battles fought by him. Okay, the minutest detail fought by him. Okay, minutest detail. What battle he fought, every battle he did not win. There were certain battles which he lost. There were certain battles where he took a wrong move. So every aspect of during his tenure was taken into consideration, and that is a book in Turek-e-Babri it was written. Next is Abul Fazl. He wrote Akbar Nama. Authentic. He believed that history, the data should be authentic. It should be reliable. I should have concrete proof. And he's saying, I will go through it. He felt that every historian should scrutinize, should verify it thoroughly, and then only arrive at a conclusion. So every person, every book which was published by different authors had their own, they had introspected every aspect, and everybody believed that this was a platform of historiography in the medieval period. Now, Bakar is basically it was seen during the Maratha Empire, and it contains elegies of the heroes, and it also contains biographies of kings and autobiographies. Now, what do you mean contains elegies of heroes? The details of the heroes, the Maratha Empire, the details of the heroes who laid down their life for the independence, for the Maratha War of Independence, in the Maratha War of Independence, ensuring that the Marathas gained their freedom. Biographies of king during that particular period, which particular king ruled, his biographies, his autobiographies, and everything was written in Bakar. And this was the first move towards knowing the Indian historiography. Now, there were many Bakars during that period. They started writing details of everybody. Let's see some of the Bakars. Sabhasad Bakar was written by Krishnaji Anand Sabhasad. He gave complete information about the rule of Shivaji Maharaj. He had complete information, complete details about Shivaji Maharaj. The second was Bhau Sahebanchi Bhakar. It gives you minutest detail about the Battle of Panipat. Panipatachi Bhakar, okay, whatever it is, okay, Bhakar. It's basically Battle of Panipat. Again, this particular Bhakar gave an insight about the Battle of Panipat. Holkaranchi Kafiyat, okay, it's about the Holkar rule. So this was basically written during the Maratha Empire. Look, just give a glance at it. Everybody had written something, a topic, and they wrote in detail about the same. Features of modern historiography. Okay, features of historiography, simple was of the modern period. Okay, now modern period ki historiography, first archaeological research department came into existence. I did not find that in ancient, I did not find them in medieval. I found it in the modern period. In this, I had a archaeological research department was established, and Indian history, they say, was traced back to 3rd BCE or even earlier. They are assuming that it is somewhere in 3rd BCE or maybe much earlier than that, much more even earlier than that. In modern period, all the details pertaining to Indian historiography was written by British officers. ओके, मतलब अभी क्या हुआ, ये क्या बात हुई कि एंशियंट टाइम पे, ठीक है, द किंग्स रोट, ओके, मेडिवल पीरियड में हम मराठा एम्पायर से शुरू किया था, उन्होंने बैटल विजुलाइज किया, दे रोट इट, ओके, बट ईयर क्या हो गया, यहाँ तो भैया कोई किसी और ने इंडिया के बारे में लिखा था. दैट इज मॉडर्न पीरियड, द फीचर्स ऑफ हिस्टोरियोग्राफी ऑफ मॉडर्न पीरियड. ओके, let's move ahead. Okay, historiography in the modern period. Sir Alexander Cunningham, he was the first Director General of Archaeological Survey of India. So India ke first Director General of Archaeological Survey of India, and he chose many sites mentioned in the Buddhist text. So in the Buddhist text there were many sites mentioned, okay, many sites, you know, the ancient sites. And he used to excavate, you know, different cities and towns. You know, you have to have something in hand for excavating, and he used to refer the Buddhist text. And Buddhist text में काफी sites mention किया हुआ है, ancient sites, and he used to pick up those sites and he used to excavate. Okay, this was the first one. The second one was Sir John Marshall. He was a person who has discovered the discovery of Harappa civilization. So the credit of discovering Harappan civilization right now, it is not in India, it is in Pakistan. The credit completely goes to Sir John Marshall. The third person is William Wilson Hunter. He wrote on Indian history. So if you take a glance कि यार सारे लोगों ने इंडिया के बारे में लिखा है, everybody wrote history of India, and all those wrote history of India, none of them were Indians. Everybody was British officers, and that is one of the most important characteristics feature of modern historiography. James Mill. The next person was James Mill. The history of British India written by British historian. The first book written on Indian history by British historians. Okay, he was a person who has written Indian history, writing details about India, and the person who writes the history is not an Indian. It sounds weird, na? Yeah, it is weird. Next was Colonel Todd. He wrote about the Rajasthan's history, the state of Rajasthan's history, and he condemned the Indian culture. He felt that Indian culture is something outdated. He did not appreciate at all the Indian culture. Mountstuart Elmstone, he was a governor of Mumbai, and he wrote History of India. So all the British officers, everybody jumped into the bandwagon. Everybody started writing about India, right from James Mill to Colonel Todd to Mountstuart Elphinstone. Everybody started jumping into the bandwagon, and everybody started writing about Indian history. Okay, Let's move ahead. We had next person was Grand Duff. He was the another one. He wrote a book on completely the Maratha Empire, a history of Marathas. He condemned Indian culture and history. He made fun of Indian culture and history. Take a break, children. The person was not an Indian. He was a British officer. वो बंदा आता है इंडिया में, मराठा एम्पायर के बारे में लिखता है, हिस्ट्री ऑफ मराठास he writes in detail, and he condemns, he feels that Indian culture is something not worth to be to be adopted, and he made fun. Even Indian, he condemned the Indian history. He felt that it's something, it is not worth. He condemned it very badly. And guys, the person who wrote was not an Indian. He was a British officer who had come down to India, maybe for who stayed in India for a few years, and in that few years he wrote a book. My God, something worth to be understood. सोचने वाली बात है. Alright, from there we'll go to pre-independence period. Now I'll explain you. Give me a minute. Now, pre-independence period, we have different ideology framework. That means we have different schools. Now if I would like to explain it in a very lucid language, कि पहला हमारे गोल अलग था, कि फर्स्ट हमारा गोल क्या था, we need to gain independence, right? After India got independence, my goals have changed. My goals were completely different. So if you see the ideological school of framework can be divided into two categories. One is pre-independence and one is post-independence. Pre-independence, we have colonial historiography, orientalist historiography, and nationalist historiography. This is prior to Indian independence. We have three schools, that is colonial historiography, orientalist historiography, and nationalist historiography. Now let us study in detail the first one, that is colonial historiography. Now colonial historiography, it was written by early scholars. Okay, early scholars in the sense means they were not people who had degrees. They were British officers and Christian missionaries. Okay, British officers who had come down to India, posting, they had their posting in India. They stayed in India for a few years, and in the span of few years they started writing books. Christian missionaries, they are basically organizations, okay, promoting their particular religion, okay, those also. So the people who wrote books during colonial historiography, they were British officers and Christian missionaries जो इंडिया में आए थे. थोड़े the British officers who came down to India, उनकी posting हो गई, थोड़े years they stayed in India for few years, और वो few years में उन्होंने इंडिया के बारे में सारी history लिख दी. Right now, they ridiculed, they made fun of Indian culture. They felt that their culture is much more superior than the Indian culture. They justified the colonial British rule. They felt that what the Britishers did is absolutely right. The Britishers ruled over India. कोई गलत काम नहीं, एकदम सही किया है. And he wrote a book, okay, colonial historiography. You find a book that is the 5 volumes of Cambridge History of India. This is nothing but the colonial historiography. Quick recap: early scholars who studied and wrote Indian history. So they were not people who had legitimate degrees. They were British officers and Christian missionaries who had come down to India for few years, and in the few years they started writing the whole history about India. They ridiculed Indian culture, they made fun of Indian culture, they felt that their Indian culture is very inferior, the British culture is much superior, and somewhere else they believed, they justified कि Britishers ने जो इंडिया के साथ किया है वो एकदम सही है. They justify the colonial British rule, and the 5 volumes of Cambridge History of India is the book. Okay, see. Outsiders coming and writing books on Indian history. The second was orientalist historiography. Now, these were European scholars. These were the people who were genuine scholars. Okay, they had admiration, they admired and respect for civilization and countries of the East. एक admiration था, एक respect था for the countries of the East. Okay, they had curiosity. They wanted to know, they wanted to know many things, and that is why they got attracted towards the countries of the East. They were the people who believed that the ancient Sanskrit language and some other European language, there are similarities. They felt that there are a lot of similarities between Sanskrit and other European language. They found it out. And they also believed that the ancient language is the mother of all Indo-European language. So Sanskrit is something they felt it has got a lot of similarity with the European language, and not only that, it is the mother of all Indo-European language. They were very interested in Vedic literature, Vedic tradition, Sanskrit literature. So these people, they had genuine admiration. They wanted to learn, and that is how they got attracted towards the countries of the East. Okay. Now, the people who contributed in the Orientalist historiography, these people did not condemn, just like that of colonial historiographians. Okay, Sir William Jones, he founded the Asiatic Society. Okay, Asiatic Society, he founded it out in Kolkata in 1784, and this particular society completely opened the doors for research in ancient Indian literature and history. So people who wanted to study, know more about the ancient Indian literature and history, for them he exclusively founded the Asiatic Society in Kolkata. Frederick Max Muller, he translated the Sanskrit text of Hitopadesh. We know Hitopadesh, tales of animals which has a moral, right? He completely translated the Sanskrit text of Hitopadesh, because they were so much curious. They wanted to know the knowledge. They had admiration, respect, and they took the pains of translating it into different languages. The Vedic literature, he took the initiative, compiled it into 6 languages so that the other European scholars could have access to it, and he also translated the Rig Veda in German language. See the amount of contribution made by the Orientalist. Right now, they were European scholars, and colonial early scholars. Difference देखो. Third one, Edward Said. He re-evaluated Orientalist writings. He again started analyzing the European scholars, and he realized that the interest of Orientalist scholars, they had genuine interest. These European scholars, they had genuine interest. The Orientalists, okay, that is European, they had genuine interest, and that is why they took the pains of translating the books from Sanskrit into different languages, into their own languages. They had it, and he realized that these were some of the contributions made by the European scholars in the Orientalist historiography. Now, the third one is nationalist historiography. Now, what is this nationalist historiography? Now, this nationalist historiography is completely written by Indian historians. Okay? Indian historians who were trained under the British education system. ये क्या चीज़ है? ये चीज़ है भाई कि Indian historians, many Indian historians, if you see, many Indian historians, they had gone abroad for higher studies, right? Those people, they studied in foreign countries, and they started writing history about India. So writings of Indian historians who were trained in the British educational system, those were the people who wrote nationalist historiography. Now, these Indian historians who were trained under the British education system, they had an inclination कि नहीं यार, सारे लोगों ने, सारे British officers ने India, they wrote bad about India, not bad, I'll say, they made fun of Indian culture. Right? They ridiculed Indian culture, they made fun of Indian culture, and somewhere else these people felt, no, enough is enough, now we need to take a stand. And they decided कि जितना ancient pride था, मेरा अभिमान था, my pride, everything got lost, I want to bring it back. And that is basically termed as the golden era of Indian history. This particular national historiography triggered the independence movement. Independence movement को चिंगारी बोलते ना, to give a trigger, to light it up. Yeah, national historiography contributed a lot, which triggered the independence movement. So again here, Indian historians who were trained in the British educational system, They had a deep, somewhere else they felt that key colonial historians, they ridiculed the fun or they made fun of Indian culture. They felt that the Britishers ruled over India, it was absolutely right. Somewhere else we lost the pride, Indian people pride कहीं ना कहीं हर्ट हुआ था, वो मुझे रिस्टोर करना है, वो मुझे वापस लेके आना है, एंड दिस वाज द बेस्ट अपॉर्चुनिटी. एंड दिस पर्टिकुलर इंडियन हिस्टोरियंस triggered the independence movement. It gave a spark to the independence movement. Now, who were the people? Vishnu Shastri Chiplunkar, inspired nationalist historians of Maharashtra. So he inspired the nationalist historians of Maharashtra ki no, we need to bring back the pride which we lost. V.D. Savarkar he wrote the Indian War of Independence 1857. Okay, so these were the books which triggered the Indian independence. Okay, now the contribution. What is the contribution of nationalist historians? Everybody, every person they try to contribute in one or the other form. V.K. Rajwade is well-known writer of Marathi. Okay, he is a well-known writer of Marathi. And he has written on a variety of subjects, right from history, linguistics, grammar, etymology. Okay, he also stated that we should write our own history. Write our own history. Example, I cannot write about what is happening in your house. अगर तुम्हें तुम्हारे घर के बारे में कोई history लिखनी है, you will have to write yourself, right? That is what he said. We need to write our own history. We need to use authentic sources. Authentic sources means the sources which are reliable, which I can believe, which I can feel that it is right, it is not fake. All inclusive image of a society. Every aspect of society should be considered when I'm writing history. Right now, I'm not going to see only the good aspects. I will see my success. I will see my failures. Everything has to be taken into consideration. And he wrote a book, Marathanchi Itihasachi Sadhne, that consists of 22 volumes. We can't even imagine 22 volumes. Okay, thank you so much, children. Happy learning. Stay safe. Next lecture I'll be back with the second part of historiography of Indian tradition.